Are you guys ready for a great session? Great. My name is Stephanie Brown, and I am Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Chief Diversity Officer at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Massachusetts. And thank you for being here. It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome Glennon Doyle, founder and president of Together Rising, a nonprofit for women and children in crisis. At Blue Cross, we are invested in diversity of ideas and people that will lead to innovative thinking around the future of healthcare. Glennon has demonstrated this in so many different ways. Author of Love Warrior, a #1 New York Times best-selling memoir and part of the Oprah Book Club. Carry On Warrior, her New York Times best-selling memoir. Her funny and conversational tell-all storytelling welcomes people into the riveting tale that she has to share about surviving adversity and growing stronger from it. She has found a wonderful partner in her wife, Abby Wambach. Which obviously you all know. She is a U.S. soccer star, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and part of our World Cup championship team. We're thrilled today to have Abby here as well. She'll come on stage and talk to Glennon a little bit about her incredible life experiences that's been able to shape her powerful narrative around inclusion, perseverance, and empathy in the face of adversity while she tries to change the world. Glennon's journey is one that we can all learn from, using the strength of community to rise up and meet all challenges and achieving a better sense of wellness. The way she meets those challenges and provides community support through Together Rising is an inspiration to all of us. Please join me in welcoming Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach.
I just want to say a few things about this painting.
What do we notice?
So I'm glad it looks like this right now. Yeah.
That was good, babe.
I didn't know I was going to do that
you
either.
Guys, this room is so beautiful. I told Abby, I feel like we need to add some like heretofores and thuses to our speech today. Just make some proclamations, you know?
Yeah. And
we would like to announce a new constitution today.
I mean, I think it is fair to say that the old one needs some work.
We, the women,
yes,
in order to form a more perfect union.
Well, and just so you guys know that we don't get a chance very often for me to kind of sit up here and pose questions to Glennon. So for me, I am excited to hear what she has to say. It's fun to sit next to her, and it's fun to be with you all here at this beautiful Faneuil Hall. I mean, this is gorgeous. So, wife?
Yes, wife.
We're going to jump into it. Tell us a little bit about how your life and your work fits with some of these Blue Cross HubWeek themes. You know, they're going to be. We've been talking about inclusion and empathy, and about removing the stigma around mental health. What has your journey been? And what's led you to be so passionate about it?
Well, about mental health, okay, all of it. Hi, Patrick! He's good. Don't you worry about that baby.
His neck pillow is amazing.
Okay, so mental health, we'll start with that.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of times people ask me about mental health and why I am passionate about trying to remove the stigma attached to mental health. And I always find that question so interesting because I feel the opposite of the idea that there should be stigma around mental health or people who struggle with mental health. Like, as a matter of fact, I only like people who struggle with mental health. Right? I do. Like, if you are a person and I meet you and you have never had any struggles with mental health, like you have never felt a little woo-woo, or like something's not right here, or like, then I am just like, thank you, it's so nice to meet you, and next. Right? Because I don't feel like there's any badge of honor about being very well adjusted to a completely crazy society, right? So, I mean, I became bulimic when I was 10 years old. I don't know what happened to me other than I think that addiction can sort of be a hiding place for really sensitive people, right? I think that I, at 10 years old, realized that life was, well, we have a 10-year-old now, and actually, how old is this one I'm about to talk about?
She's 12.
She's 12.
Every year, she's like, I can't ever remember. Their ages change every year.
No.
How am I supposed to do this?
I'm not gonna try. So anyway, she's not driving yet, but she's walking. She's like in that age. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She has an attitude, but she's not like graduate. She's just in that area. So she the other day, she said, you know, I just feel, she came downstairs from her bedroom and she was like really upset and she said, I just feel so lonely. And so we had a really long conversation, and what we figured out is that it wasn't that she didn't feel like she had people around her. It was that she was very aware of the human condition, which is that we are all trapped inside this skin all by ourselves, and it's freaking terrifying, right? So we're always trying to like bridge ourselves, to like make bridges between us and other people, but you can't perfectly translate the experience of being a human being, so we're just doing the best we can by creating these maps that like point to what it's like to be us. Like, here's some art, here's a sentence, here's, I don't know. But how we're really all, at the end of the day, trapped inside, this is freaking depressing. I'm so sorry.
It's not depressing.
It's truth.
It's reality. And I think why people love you so much is that you talk about truth. And that is why our daughter is so much like you, is because she doesn't wade through BS to get to the real stuff. She's like, I feel alone. I feel lonely, you know?
Right. And so we watch her because I think that, I mean, for lots of reasons, she's a lot like me, bless her heart. And I think that when you are a highly sensitive person, you feel everything, you hear things. I mean, you know, I have to wear like earphones sometimes to block out the noise of the world. I feel under assault constantly, okay, just walking through a hallway. And so I think sometimes we find things to numb those being kind of oversensitive to everything. So I found food. And food was a way, just like every time the feelings, the hot loneliness of life bubbled up, food is what smashed it back down, right? And then since I never got that taken care of, since I never learned how to deal with just the pain of being human, that morphed into alcoholism and then everything else, all the things, right? So the way I feel about it now, and now that I understand that what led me in my life to become a bulimic and an alcoholic, it are the exact same parts of me that make me special now, right? The sensitivity that led me to hide is the same sensitivity that makes me a really good artist, right? And the kind of fearful way of life that I had, my therapist calls it anxiety. I call it my fire, okay? And can we talk about that anxiety? Like that, I mean, it's not paranoia if everyone is actually out to get you, okay? And it's not anxiety if everything is really going to hell in a handbasket, right? I'm just paying attention. Anyway, my therapist doesn't want to hear that. She just wants me to keep taking my medication, which I do. But that fire, that causes me to lead kind of a hard life is also what makes me a really tireless activist, right? It's how we get stuff done. So what I want to tell my little girl is that she is going to be like me. We know it. We're already like saving up for all of her various medications like I have. But she's going to be amazing. Like all the best people I know, all the artists I know, all the activists I know, they are all people who started off with like a kind of a hard journey, who were overstimulated by all of it, who felt all of it, right? But eventually they found a way to use that specialness, that fire, that hyper attention to kind of light the world on fire as opposed to like burning themselves up, right? So, Tish, or the one I'm talking about but will not name, she I mean, you guys, she is not easy to live with. Do any of you have these extra sensitive children that you, dear God, right? I mean, so I'm just going to tell a real quick story about her, okay?
You can do whatever you
Thank
want.
you.
This is your thing.
Thank you. So her high levels of sensitivity, which is exactly how I was, is mental stuff. She was in class last year, and her teacher made the mistake of bringing up the fact that the ice caps are melting, and the polar bears are losing their homes, okay? Now, the rest of the class thinks that sucks, but are still able to go to recess, okay? Tish, her life is over, okay? This is done. You guys, we talked about nothing but polar bears for 6 months. We had posters of polar bears on the walls. I had to adopt some freaking polar bears from like National Geographic or something so that she could feel like she was saving the polar bears. After a few months, I had my dear friend send me an email pretending to be the mayor of Antarctica or something, announcing to me that now the polar bears are actually fine. It's all done. It's all better. So that I could show that to Tish and she would leave me alone about the polar bears. Okay. So it didn't work because she's not an idiot, all right? So one night, we're doing bedtime, which is like the end of the day. It's like we're almost to the promised land, which is just they're asleep and we're on the couch with the Netflix and the carbs, right? So I'm walking out the door, almost there, and she goes, "Mommy." And I was like, "Oh, no, no." So I go back to her, I lay down, I go, "What's wrong?" She goes, "The polar bears." And I was like, "No, hell no, we're not, no." And she goes, "Mommy, it's just that nobody cares. And so today it's the polar bears, but tomorrow it's gonna be us." And then she went to sleep, and I was like, "Oh my God, the polar bear!" Right? And so in that moment, it was like it's so easy to live with me. I'm like this on a regular Tuesday night on the couch. It was like such a perfect example for me of, okay, people who pay attention, people who are super sensitive, people who feel the pain of the world are annoying and inconvenient, okay? But they have also been, all throughout the history of the world, in every culture, pointed out and celebrated and revered. Okay, these are the medicine men and women, these are the shaman, these are the poets, the clergy, the healers, right? They're people who are a little different, yikes, eccentric, but they are valued members of the culture. They are the people who stand on the bow of the Titanic and point and say, "Iceberg, iceberg," while everybody else is like, "We just want to keep dancing." They're prophets. But in our culture, because we are so hell-bent on more efficient, faster, 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 we just think they're annoying and we put them away, right? We think there is something wrong with them instead of understanding that they are people pointing to what is wrong. Okay, so what I think is that actually, as a young child, the reason why I sunk into addiction, and it's particularly food addiction as a young girl, and bulimia, is not because I was crazy, but because I was a canary in a coal mine, right? Because I was paying attention to the messages that the culture gives girls, which is your job is to remain on this earth and continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller in voice and dreams and anger and ambition and body. And if you could just disappear completely, that would be amazing. I was just soaking in. All of our girls who have these sorts of issues are actually responding very logically to toxins that our culture feeds them. Right? So what I'm trying to explain to our girl, is that she will always be highly sensitive. She will always be paying attention. Life will sometimes be harder for her. She will have to be in therapy. She will have to probably have medicine. She might need a lot of tools. But what I want for her is that I think in a profoundly sick society, filled with misogyny, filled with racism, filled with all of these isms, that we can either get sick or we can get angry. Right? I think when we breathe in all the toxins and we can't see them, we get sick and quieter and sicker and quieter. So I'm trying to raise little girls who are pissed.
And also, I think that we're trying to raise children that are aware, right? I think that the reason why both of us fell victim to addiction is because we didn't have a place that we felt like we could talk about it. And this leads us into the next question. How can we, as a community, better embrace those that are struggling with addiction? I mean, you talked about the canaries in the coal mine, you talk about the polar bears, and you talk about mental health. Well, how can we all help the community of those struggling with substance use disorders or chronic health issues? I mean, it's a long journey, treatment, recovery. What can we do better?
Well, I think one thing we can do is, one of the tricky things about me with mental health and with everybody I know about mental health is there's this very weird thing. It's the only condition that involves illness that the people who are affected by it are wholly resistant to treatment or to getting better. Like, I wish, and some of you who are like me, you'll understand, and those who won't, just try to listen to this real quick. But like, every time I'm on my medication for a long time and I start to feel better, my first thought is, okay, I can stop taking my meds now. It's like I have an umbrella and it's pouring rain, and I'm like, since I'm dry now, I'm gonna put my umbrella away, right? We are resistant. I have so many friends who need medication desperately, but won't go on it. And I've been thinking about this forever, and I think the reason why we are resistant to medication and to treatment sometimes is because, and I know this is a tricky thing to say, but I'm gonna say it because it's true and I believe it, is because we have a knowing on the inside of us that the same thing that other people are calling our illness is also our magic, right? It's something that we believe, this fire inside of us is what makes us us. And we're afraid that if we medicate it away, we will lose who we are.
Yeah, that's good.
This edge, this fire, this paying attention, this part. This is why all the, artists are, woo, like they think they're gonna lose the magic that allows them to create and to feel so deeply. It's like, so I think that what we need from people who don't struggle with these ways is for you to understand that we don't want to lose who we are, right? What I try to tell people who are trying to decide whether to get on medication or not is that I would never be able to do my art if I weren't on my medication. It's a fear that we have, and it's not real, right? It doesn't take away who we are. It allows us to become who we are, when medicated correctly, right? But what we need is for other people to not just want to help us, but to understand that we can help you, right? That we have special gifts that we're bringing to the table, right? And that we don't want to lose this fire that we have inside of ourselves, that we actually just want to learn how to harness the fire to warm the world as opposed to burning ourselves up. And one of the ways we can do that, I think, like when I was in high school, high school, has anyone tried it? Sweet Jesus. Oh, God, it's so awful. It's like Lord of the Flies. It's just, I hate it so much. Walk through the hallway every day just holding my breath, just trying not to And so I got so sick in high school that I actually got put in a mental hospital my senior year because my bulimia was so bad. By the way, when I tell people that, they think that I must have been a complete disaster in high school if I had made my way to a mental hospital. The week after I got out of the mental hospital, I was voted leading leader of my class of 1,000. I was riding on a convertible, waving to the crowds because I had just been elected to homecoming court. Okay? I was, in many ways, idolized because I was so good at acting like everything was perfect on the outside while having a completely different inner life. Right? So one of the things that I think we can do to help people, all people, because by the way, mental health is not just for people who struggle with depression and anxiety. Just like physical health isn't just for Olympians, right? Like, we all have brains that we need to focus on making them become strong and healthy, just like we all have bodies. Okay? So this is not a separate conversation that we have for sick people. This is something that we all get involved in. And what we need are safe places where people can be human. Where people can talk about who they are on the inside and not have to live their entire lives like they're in high school and walking around and trying to act perfect and trying to be invulnerable and trying to be bulletproof, right? People ask me, oh my God, how was the mental hospital? I loved the mental hospital. I would go back tomorrow. Okay? Because I loved it, every minute of it, okay? Because in the mental hospital, the jig was up. You didn't have to pretend you were perfect anymore. Nobody there was okay. All right? So you got to actually talk about your insides and tell the truth and say how you felt and say what made you angry and say what made you sad and talk about this ridiculous experience we have to have of being human. My second favorite place, recovery meetings. Okay? The first time I sat down at a recovery meeting, AA, but I'm not supposed to say AA, recovery meeting, and sat down in a circle of people and listened to them talk, I thought, oh, this is only the second time in my life where I have heard people tell the truth. The first was in the mental hospital. Second was a recovery meeting. Okay? It is ridiculous. You want to talk about what's insane? It's insane that we have to actually get ourselves hospitalized to be able to tell the truth about our life experiences, right? So after I started going to recovery meetings is when I started writing. Because I realized that my sickness was never about how painful life was. It was about the shame and the hiding about how painful life was. And I learned this magic trick, which is that when you are in a safe place with other people and you can tell the truth, you can pull those stories outside of yourself that you've been telling yourself make you not as good as everybody else and make you different. When you can get those scary demons out of yourself and get them in front of people into the light and other people can look at it and say, oh my God, me too. That's all that recovery groups have figured out. That's the magic. That's why people keep coming back, right? Because it's a safe place to be human. And because there's rules about when somebody shares themselves, you don't get to explain it away. You don't get to grab their grief and make it better. You know, there are rules about how brave you can be when you speak, and there are rules about how gentle you have to be and how much empathy you have to have when you receive other people's stories, so it's safe. That's good. I don't know what the question was, but I feel like it was the answer to something.
Well, it's actually a good segue because I want to focus a little bit of time on empathy. And it's a buzzword. We're hearing a lot these days. I think it's the whole idea of HubWeek, and especially with the current political climate, I think a lot of us are struggling to remain empathetic to those who might have different views than us.
Not me. I feel fine about it. I think I'm doing great.
Can you tell us how you maintain empathy when you feel angry and marginalized, and how active compassion can be healing?
Okay, there's so many buzzwords in that question. Okay, let's start with,
What is empathy to you?
okay, so empathy is the ability, the superpower of not having had someone else's experience, but being able to imagine what that experience might be like, okay? So imagination is the beginning of empathy. Then that's what we teach our kids. You might not be able to understand what that kid felt like in your class who said that or did that or acted out that way or whatever. Your job as a human being is to imagine what that must feel like.
Yeah, flip it.
Flip it, right? So whenever anybody says to me, oh, I can't imagine, I just can't imagine what that would have been like. I just can't imagine why she'd do that. I just can't imagine. I'm like, oh, that's your problem. You have to imagine. That's our job down here, to get in each other's shoes and get out of our little teeny perspectives and start imagining what it might be like to be her, to be him. So, I believe so strongly in the power of imagination, not just for art, but for being human, right? So that resistance we feel right away when we don't understand. Imagination is just the opposite of judgment, right? We want to stay safe. We want to stay in our lanes. We want to stay in our ideologies. We want to stay. When we feel that fear, that shutting down, it is our job to open up, to imagine, before we talk, to imagine what it must be like to be the other person. Right? And then you say marginalized. Marginalized means a marginalized person is somebody who has been a margin. If you think of a piece of paper, the margins are the sides, right? So marginalized person or marginalized group or marginalized race or marginalized whatever, people who have been pushed to the side while other people are centered, okay? So the way that we start to begin to understand how to respond to marginalized groups are we think about what voices are centered and what voices and what people's experiences are only considered in relation to the centered person, right? So for example, here's an example. This is the difference between diversity and inclusion. So we are in a time now where diversity is dead to us, okay? Diversity is not even close to enough. We should stop using that word. Diversity means there's this many seats at a table and there is still one person in charge of deciding who sits at that table, right? Diversity is just who's sitting at the table. Inclusion is letting go of control of that table and allowing every person who's sitting at that table the space, the safety, and the power to speak, to use their voice to change the culture completely of the table or the organization that that table represents. Okay, so examples of this are, recently, last year, a couple years ago, we planned this tour. I was going out to launch Love Warrior, and I hate book tours with a deep and burning passion. And so I said, I will do this freaking book tour, but only if we figure out how to make every single one of those stages a stage where people in the audience will see voices that have been marginalized, that deserve to be heard, but aren't getting opportunities to be heard. Okay, so we went out on this tour called Together. It was amazing. We had all different kinds of voices, groups that what you would consider marginalized. We were getting ready to brand this tour, okay? We were starting to pick the signs and the lettering and all the things. We had this, what I thought was a fantastic campaign, all based on posters and pictures that were reminiscent of the suffragettes era. I was like, this is badass. This is like where it's at. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. From my perspective, this looked good. Sent it around to the rest of the team. My friend Lovey, I don't know if you know her. Lovey, she's amazing. You should follow her all the time. So she writes back, she's black, okay? She writes back to me, she said, are you actually crazy? And I was like, well, first of all, yes, but I feel like we're talking about something else here. She said, you need to know that from a black woman's perspective, our perspective of the suffragettes movement is different than your perspective of the suffragettes movement. That what you don't know is that a lot of black women were completely discounted and marginalized during that movement. So when you look at that lettering, when you look at that posters, your perspective is badass. You feel empowered. When I look at those posters, I feel completely ignored and left out. So, inclusion means, and you know how I felt after that email? So freaking annoyed. I am white and very fragile. And I am doing my best. And I am trying. And I wish for everyone to celebrate my new efforts. Right? And this meant back to the drawing board. This meant back to all of the things. So diversity was having Lovey at the table. Inclusion was creating a situation where everybody felt completely safe saying BS to that, and here's why. And then inclusion was throwing the whole thing out and starting completely over. It's a complete loss of control.
And also doing work in that moment, trying to uncover our own white fragility, right? And our own sense of like, okay, why does this feel wrong on so many levels? Like, why did we even at first have that moment like?
Because I am used to being centered.
Right. And
because
I think,
as a white person, I am used to, well, this is my perspective.
Yep.
And if your perspective is different, you know what we'll do? We'll just put an asterisk underneath.
Yeah.
If this offends you, right? But there's no more asterisks anymore. We are beyond asterisks. It's throwing the whole thing out. Mm-hmm. So like it has just happened to me this week, you guys. So I'm in the middle of, and I know we're not being political, so I'm code. I'm in the middle of creating this entire movement with all of these other activists. That includes encouraging white women to take a hell of a lot more risk and put themselves on the line. And so we had this, one of the calls to it is walk out, walk out, walk out. We spent so long making our cool memes. Walk out, walk out, walk out, all the things. This group that represents people who have physical challenges wrote to me 2 days ago and was like, how do you think this makes us feel? That you are calling everybody to, in the name of marginalized people, walk out. What about us? Do we not count in your... And I was like, Jesus Christ. Right? But that's innovation, okay? Innovation is saying, oh my God, how is this word going to sound 10 years from now? Right? We wrote this letter recently. This week I wrote this letter. Did you guys see the letter to Dr. Ford? Okay. We wrote that letter. The whole thing was about the sisterhood and sisters and our daughters and our mothers. And Tarana Burke wrote to me and she said, I can't sign that letter. What about all the guy survivors? What about our brothers? Like, you can't write that letter that way. And I was like, I am so sorry. I forget about boys because I don't know any. I just have one in my house. And so...
We have a 15-year-old son.
Yeah, we do. We have a son. Yeah. He's fine. I'm just joking. Yay, boys. So... And so my immediate reaction was so annoyed. Can't we have anything? No, we can't, not as visionaries. Because our job is not to respond to what is right now. Our job is to respond to what's next. And what's next is not that the future is female.
That's good.
What's next is that the future is for everybody who believes in everybody. Mm-hmm. Right? And this is not... And so what we're doing is so big, you know? It's no more like, yay, women, boo, men. It's like, yay, fully human, boo, toxic masculinity, right? So this baby is just really feeling me up here and cheering a lot. Thank you.
Well, okay. So I think that all of this is good, and it's
Thank
really,
you, baby.
it's really important. I mean, listen, this is literally an average morning in my life.
You guys, sometimes she wakes up, I wake up a lot earlier and have all the coffee, and I'm so excited. We have to like smash the patriarchy by 6 a.m., right? So she has woken up before, and I have easels set up in our bedroom of our plan for the day.
She's like, wake up, it's time to wake up. We gotta smash the patriarchy today.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, okay. Let me go
But I
brush
bring
my
you
teeth.
coffee.
I love that part.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. So much of the activity around HubWeek has been trying to figure out how to turn ideas into action. And you are the founder of Together Rising, a nonprofit. It's a great example. Can you tell us about it and how you turn ideas into action?
Yeah, I mean, I think like really what Together Rising does, more than turning ideas into, I think in my art, that's about turning ideas into stuff. But I think Together Rising is really just turning feelings into action. Like when people all over the world are heartbroken about something, well, like the refugee crisis last year, I can feel, because I'm so in constant contact, I mean, I probably get like, what, hundreds of emails a day from women, just telling me where they are and how they feel and what's going on in their lives. And I read all of them. And it's like part of, it's the beauty of my job. The beauty of my job is not writing and speaking, it's reading and listening. Because I get to kind of take all of it in, right? Because of that, I kind of get to have my finger on the pulse of what is enraging us, what is breaking our hearts. And my job is to help people all over the country turn their heartbreak and anger into action that turns into change. Okay, and this started, I'll just tell a brief story about how this all started. It starts with my mental health practices, because one of the ways I know how to deal with the feelings, the strength and the power of the feelings that I have is to change them into action. To feel them first, to not slam the door on them, to not numb them with food or booze or snark or shopping or sex, sometimes with shopping. But to not numb them and smush them down, but to invite them in and just feel them and let them take me out for a day. I mean, Abby knows sometimes feelings will take me out for a day and a half. I'll have feelings about the world or a relationship or a friendship that just broke my heart, and I will not be able to get out of bed for a day. And that's just the way it's gonna be, okay? I need to be able to feel it so then I can turn it into something beautiful. Okay, so what I do is, I was practicing this years and years and years ago, and I was feeling incredible gratitude, because positive feelings are also something that you can turn into action, right? I was feeling incredible gratitude, and one day I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get on my email and I'm gonna do the first thing that somebody asks me to do for them, because people are always asking me to do things for them. So that's how I'm gonna respond to this gratitude. So I opened my email, there's a letter from a woman who said, Glennon, I run a home for teenage moms in Indiana. For teenage homeless moms, I'm sorry. And my heart is broken. I just need to tell you what happened to me last night. A 14-year-old girl came to my door. She was holding a baby boy. She had nowhere to go. She'd been kicked out of her home, and I had to turn her away, even though we have a room open. Because of red tape, because of these funds they didn't have, because of all of these things. The problem was money. So I was like, perfect. I wrote back to her, and I said, okay, I will give you the money. Tell me how much you need. And she said, we need $80,000. And I said, well, we need a new plan. It's gonna be a hard charge to hide, okay? So, and I was heartbroken, because I was like, no, you know when you really know you're supposed to do something, but there's like, wait, I can't do that thing, but you know you're supposed to do that thing, so no, this is where it was meant to be, is with this woman reading this email. That's when I remembered, oh my God, my job is not to solve all the world's problems, my job is to introduce people to each other. The most revolutionary thing you can do is introduce people to each other. My job is to introduce this badass woman who is serving these girls in Indiana to my community at Monastery. I'm a writer, I forgot, I'm a writer. Okay, so I called the woman back and I said, here's what we're gonna do. we're gonna write something amazing together about your work, about this girl, about what's happening. And I think that what's gonna happen is my people are gonna show up big. This is how the Love Flash Mob started, okay? We called it a Love Flash Mob because at the time I was obsessed with flash mobs. Do you know what a flash mob is? I don't know why they stopped. I think that...
This is cue the flash mob now. How amazing would that be?
It's like...
If they all just started to dance and sing.
If you really loved me, you would have made that happen here. But it's like the best metaphor for being human in the world, right? It's like we're all just walking around in our lives, like completely disconnected from each other, zombified, right? And then somebody starts dancing like an idiot in the middle of public. And then suddenly some fool, and then some other fool jumps in with them, and then we figure out that we all knew the choreography anyway. That's like life, right? So, do you remember that Oprah one with the black-eyed peas? Oh my God, there's like 7 million views of that, and I am 6 million of the views. So I called it a Love Flash Mob because I thought, you know what, if we could just give one person if we could get one person to read this story and care, and it could move their heart, and they say, I'll show up, I'll give, I bet everybody else will start doing it too. Okay, so we stayed up like all night, me and this woman. We wrote this beautiful piece. We made links, we made all of these things. We made a rule that we would launch this the next day and that we wouldn't allow anyone to give more than $25. Because it wasn't about one person. It's not, a flash mob isn't one person standing up and being an amazing dancer, right? Boring. Like, a love flash mob is a bunch of idiots showing up and not even being good dancers and just giving a little bit of themselves and the collective effect of that, right? So this is a way to democratize it too, because I wanted to turn a whole community into a bunch of givers who understood that their gift of $25 for a single mom to whom $25 is a big freaking deal would have the same exact impact than somebody else for whom $25 is no big deal. Nobody was gonna save the day, this had to be a community effort. So we launched the story the morning at like 10 a.m. By 3 p.m. we had like $187,000, right? And the average was $20 or something. So anyway, that's where it started. You guys, okay, the story goes on. But anyway, I got to go to the home. I got to meet the girl. They went and got the 14-year-old girl that day at 3 o'clock. Brought her in. I got to go meet her baby. Oh my God. So that started what has turned into Together Rising, which basically just exists to take our collective heartbreak and collective rage and do something constructive with it. Right? Because I believe that heartbreak and anger are the answer, not the problem.
How much money have you guys raised total?
15 million, thanks for asking.
It's amazing. And it's over $15 million now, and I think the average donation is like 30 bucks.
That's what's so cool about it. We've never had like a big corporate donor, although we would welcome one, universe. This is all just people giving their, small thing with great love. All right, small thing, collected together with millions of other people turns into life. We ended up being, from our country, the #1 donor to the refugee crisis. What? And the cool thing is, I'm sure that someday this will change with the other people that do it, but I do this as like an act of gratitude and service to the world. I make my money off of books and speaking and Abby, and so, keep working, babe, keep working. So the way we've arranged Together Rising is that I volunteer for Together Rising. Every minute that I spend on Together Rising is all volunteers. So every penny that's given to us by private donors goes directly to people in need. We have 0 administration costs that come from givers. Okay, do you think Sister would have thought that was a good job that I did talking about Together Rising? Okay.
I think now we're at the question and answer portion of this contest.
Ooh, this is my favorite part.
We have a few rules about the question and answer portion of this. When you stand up and you hold the microphone, Make sure the question has a question in it.
It's actually our only rule.
That's it.
We will have no hostage situations here.
We have a 10-year-old Emma who holds us hostage too often to let other adults do it to us.
Right.
So please
Oh
just...
God, do any of you have one? We have this child, when she starts talking, everyone just goes dead inside.
She's trying to figure out, at first, when I first got into the family, I was like, come on, we gotta listen to her. She's a human. Like, come on. Now I'm like, for whatever reason, she just likes
Dead
to hear
inside.
herself talk.
Dead
All right.
inside.
So if you have a question, raise your hand. We've got folks around with microphones, and we're gonna try to get around. We've got 20 minutes left, so talk fast, so will we.
Hi,
Hi.
I love you both. Any chance you guys have any idea what that I Am Here video did for the rest of us?
Oh.
Because, thank you. It's not a question, I'm sorry.
That's a pink video.
But you turned it into a question, which was very innovative of you. Any chance you know that? Yeah, so she's talking about this video we made right after the nomination went through. And it was just, Abby and I that day just felt so, we just felt like we had to just, we'd been working so hard to organize that week, and we just felt like we needed to just dance and rage. And so we were, you know, because I think that we have to maintain joy. All right, I think sometimes, like, waging joy in our lives, even in the midst of hard times, is like the ultimate resistance.
Active forever, yeah.
Because, right, so we're like, they can take our court seat, but they will never take our dancing! And we just danced to this Pink song. It was a Pink song. It's a good song. I Am Here, yeah. Okay, thank you for loving that.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you guys for coming to Boston. Advice for someone trying to start some sort of a movement, an organization for support.
I'm trying right now, so if
Yeah.
you have any advice for me.
Well, my daughter and I came to a decision after a friend of hers committed suicide that there's not enough space for kids to just go out and say it's okay to not be okay.
Yep.
So we started, and it's really, really, really barely started. So advice on where to focus, how to build it.
First of all, thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, that's the answer, right? Like, sometimes feel like leadership is just looking at the world, noticing where the holes are in the universe, and instead of just bitching about it and wishing it were different, creating the thing that's missing. Right? Like, just, it's that thing like, be who you needed when you were younger. Create what you need, right? First of all, I think it's so beautiful that you are focusing on suicide. I think that whenever a parent writes to me about having just lost a child to suicide, it's so impossible to understand. And suicide is the only kind of death that we even try to understand. It points to our misunderstanding of mental health, right? We don't try to logically understand deaths from cancer, but we try to logically understand deaths from depression. We can't understand it. Every time a parent writes to me about having lost a child from suicide, I send them this poem that Warshawn Shire wrote about refugees. And it said, you have to understand that nobody leaves home unless the water is safer than the land. And I feel like that, only in that can we understand, can we even begin to understand why someone would leave their life due to suicide. Only if they believed that the water was safer than the land. So I don't know if you have advice, you're always building something. What I would say to you is, do you know To Write Love on Her Arms? Do you know the organization To Write Love on Her Arms? Okay, my friend Jamie runs this amazing organization called that. They won the CNN Hero Awards a few years ago. He's doing amazing work with teenagers and holding space for pain and suicide. So look him up, because maybe you could. One thing that annoys me a little bit is how we all start these little branches of things instead of joining together. I think it's one of the things that we have to do is sort of join other movements that are already building instead of trying to build all these teeny little things. So maybe look at his stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's why Together Rising is so fantastic in my mind, is because though you're raising funds from the collective heartbreak of all people, you're finding those kind of organizations that are already embedded, the first responders, the ones that, and I mean, you guys vet them so deeply and relentlessly that the money is actually getting put into the hands of the people that are already on the ground doing the work.
Right.
Next question.
Hi, I'm over here again. Thank you both for coming to Boston, first of all. My question is, this time with you has been such a gift for all of us. I'm sure I can speak for everyone in the room. And as an act of gratitude, what is an action step that you can give each of us to go forth today and do to honor you?
Beautiful question. I feel like from your body language, are you throwing that one to me or no?
No, I can do it.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
I think that especially all that we've been talking about, well, all that Glennon was talking about, in terms of the empathy and kind of where the world is right now, where we're so divided, and you are either on this team or that team. I mean, you guys get it right now because the Boston Red Sox are playing the New York Yankees. Yes.
Get the ball, do the thing.
I think that I was listening to this podcast the other day, and the whole notion of just sending people actual kindness, right? Like, we all get so stuck in our phones and in our own problems and in our own what we're doing next. Like, just noticing other human beings, like looking up away from our phones, either maybe paying for a stranger's coffee if you can afford that, or telling somebody, and by the way, don't tell a woman that she should smile, ever. We know this is mostly women. But like, just telling somebody like, hi, it's nice to see you.
Yeah,
Spreading human connection and kindness is an act. I mean, right now it feels like an act of, it's a different act. Like, people don't know how to communicate. Like, having our children look at us and talk through things, you know? Like, we got into this thing the other day, and unfortunately we were holding Tish hostage in the backseat of our truck because we were trying to talk through something. But that was important for her because we're modeling how people need to interact. And I think we've lost a little bit of that because it's like, as soon as you see somebody with, you know, a certain hat or whatever it might be, we've already determined who they are. And because somebody might have different beliefs than you doesn't mean that they're any less human, doesn't mean that they deserve any less human interaction and experience. So I think kindness is where I always kind of try to get back to when things feel a little bit off and scary.
And you're so good at that. I mean, I agree that I think one thing we can do is hold space for there being ideas that are in line with equal justice for all without dehumanizing people. Like, I just think there is a struggle right now where people feel like they have to be tolerant of intolerance because that is the kind thing to do. And so I think we have to define what kindness and love is.
Yeah.
Kindness and love is not making everybody feel comfortable. And the rejection of hate is not hate itself. It is, in fact, love, right? So it is okay for us to say, no, that idea is wrong, We will not have misogyny here. We will not have racism here. We will not have homophobia here. We will not have Islamophobia here. We will not have any of that here, while also holding space for the fact that you are human. Right? We can resist dehumanizing people who have bad ideas, but we can insist that they are bad ideas.
Yep, that's good. Okay.
And one last thing I would say is when you feel angry, when you feel brokenhearted, do something with it. We need to use the fire inside of us constructively, right? So it's an energy. These feelings are energy. I think women especially are told so often from the time we're born that we're not allowed to be angry. By the way, all marginalized groups are told they're not allowed to be angry. Why would that be? Because anger is a powerful force for change. That's why, you know, my friends who are black and who are women tell me that the resistance to anger from a black woman is so, it's like, of course, why would that be? Because angry women make change. So it is very important in order to maintain status quo that every time a woman feels angry, she thinks there's something wrong with her, instead of seeing her anger as a sign that there is something wrong. Not with her, but something out there that she is now going to become part of changing. Okay, so I think women need to get really comfortable with their anger, need to give themselves permission to be angry, need to see their anger as a sign that there is something wrong out there that we need to join in to make change about. Right? And not let that anger eat us up inside. Let it drive us towards people who are making change in the world. So that's what I would say is be angry. Whenever somebody always stands up at an event like this and says, Glennon, I'm so angry. It's always a woman. I'm so angry and I'm struggling with my anger. Why am I so angry? And I want to be like, look, there are only two types of women that I respect right now at this moment in this country. One, angry women, and two, women who are in an active coma. Right? Like, if you tell me that you are not angry and you are a woman, you better be waking up from some kind of Rip Van Winkle sleep.
That's good.
And I'm going to send you some links, and you are not going to believe what's going on here.
All right, next question.
And I think they're telling us this will have to be the last question.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. So I'm a pediatrician, and I'm a mom of just a sweet, sensitive boy and two little girls who think that they're awesome.
Yes.
And they are awesome, but I have this awareness that the world is coming for all of them, and it's going to tear them down in the various ways. And so my goal for myself as a mom is to get them grown up with my son still able to talk about how he feels and to feel okay doing that, and for my daughters to feel good in who they are and strong and confident. But my question for you is, how do we do that?
How? Yeah. So since we have 2 minutes left.
You're the doctor.
Yeah, she's the doctor. We're screwed. Pediatrician doesn't know what to do.
Pediatrician she's asking us.
Shoot. No, I think that there's no more perfect question we could end on than that one.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I think you're exactly right. I think that this has to do with it. You know, because I was so poisoned for so long as a little girl, and because it made me so sick for so long, the second my little girls were born, I was in their ear, man. I was whispering to them, like, you are badass. Like, they'd get mad and cry, and I'd be like, yes, sister, bring the rage, be angry, that's right. Like, somebody would tell them to smile, and I'd be like, oh. Whispering in their ears, you know, that they could be girls and they could be leaders and they could be angry and they could be everything and still be girls. And then one day, like a few years ago, I woke up and I was like, holy shit, I have a son too. And I haven't been whispering in his ear since he was born that he could be sensitive and still be a boy, that he could be vulnerable and still be a boy, that he could be other things other than angry and still be a boy, that he could be deep and vulnerable, that he could talk about things other than sports, sex, and the weather. Right? That's, for every single, when we talk about innovation, that's where we're going. Okay? I know it's very, very, very hard for people who have been in the women's movement for so long to shift focus and say, oh, the boys are in trouble. But what I'm telling you right now is that the boys are in trouble. And that one of the most feminist things that we can do right now is to rehumanize our men. Because the single most dangerous thing to a girl in our culture is the dehumanized white male in America.
Tell the story.
The soap story, you guys. So I go into the kids' shower. So I have expensive shampoo, but I buy crap shampoo for my kids. So we have this daily struggle where the girls come down and steal my shampoo and take it up to their, so it's like this back and forth. So I went upstairs to their shower. Our two girls share a shower with our son. And I go up and the girls' little bottles of all their various things are lined up on one side of the shower and Chase's are lined up on the other. And you guys, I looked at it and was like, oh my God, okay. All the girls' bottles of their shampoos and their body washes, okay, they're all pink and purple or light shades of cream, thin, tall, right? My boys' section, he has this body wash, which I guess we bought for him, and it's like this wide, this big, red, white, and blue, because toxic masculinity and patriotism are all like smushed together, right? It's like, literally says on the bottle, drop, kick, sweat, slam, dunk, odor. Like, it's like, I'm like, is this child preparing for war or washing his armpits? Every word on the bottle is violent, aggressive, all the girls' bottles. Okay, they're not commands, they're not even sentences. They're disconnected cursive words like ethereal, light, breezy, gentle. Just like things we're supposed to be, I guess, but are hard to pin down, you know? And my first thought was like, oh my God, these children are getting messages before they even leave our houses in the morning about the boxes that they need to put themselves into to walk out into the world and be considered a valid girl or a valid boy. Right? We are teaching our kids this, and our bathroom is dangerous. Right? So, these sorts of things, I tell that story to because we need to start seeing these things, right? We work so hard not to, every time we hear a boys will be boys crap story, we don't leave our kids to figure those out. We say, you guys, let's listen to what that news person just said. What did she just say? Mm-hmm. Listen to that. What does that say to you about what it means to be a man? Yeah. What is she trying to convince you of? Yeah. That a man, in order to be successful in this country, can only be a few things, has to be rich, has to be famous, and has to conquer women. It's just all through those three filters.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that we do is we point our girls to Victoria's Secret model advertisements or Hooters commercials. I mean, one day, couple months ago, Hooters commercial came on and I paused it. Girls were sitting with me. I was like, girls, what do you guys see? And they said, we see women trying to sell chicken wings with their boobs. And so we go through it. We point them to some of these messages, especially the toxic ones that not just our boys are getting, but also our girls are getting. They say, you know, we ask them, what are girls' bodies meant for? And they're like, moving and running for office and playing sports and hugging and reading. Are women's bodies made to sell things? And the answer is no. So there's so many things out there, marketing-wise, that are trying to get into the consciousnesses of our children that we have to point back towards and it's not going to be perfect, right? We're going to miss a bunch. But we have to start making our boys and our girls aware of these toxic messages that they're being given.
Yeah, because all the water in the world can't sink a ship unless it gets inside. Right? So we are not in a position where we can rid the world of all of these messages, but we can create children who can see it, right? We can tell them different stories. Do you know that 87% of every message you hear from cradle to grave is from someone trying to sell you something? And then we wonder why we're confused, right? We have to tell our kids different stories about what it means to be a man, about what it means to be a woman, or they will only have the story that marketers tell them to believe. And I think the mistake that people make is that we think we have to have all the answers before we point our kids towards it and ask them questions. We don't. We don't have all the answers. We just ask them questions. What are they trying to tell you about what it means to be a woman? What do you think it means to be a woman? And beautiful conversations start. And we learn from them and they learn from us. Right? You don't have to have it all figured out before you talk to your kids about it, but you may not leave your children alone to figure out messages, to filter messages that we can't even filter yet.
Yep. Amen, sister. You guys, thank you for having us. Glennon Doyle.
We love you.
Just a young gun with a quick fuse. I was uptight, wanna let loose. I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind. Not a yes sir, not a follower. Fit the box, fit the mold, have a seat in the foyer. Take a number, I was lightning.